Trying to evolve people's, cultural center of gravity, so to speak, is almost never effective if it's coercive, right? That is, the way sustainable forms of cultural evolution occur is that people are persuaded, for the most part, right, to adopt a new worldview. And the elements of persuasion really occur in the new truth, the new goodness, and the new aesthetic beauty that every one of these worldviews demonstrates as it emerges, right? The biggest recruitment tool for progressive postmodernism was the music of the 60s, which made you feel free in a whole new way, right? And that was, in a sense, both the tool which attracted people to progressive postmodern consciousness and kind of proof or evidence for the fact that it was an actual renaissance. It had, some great art that went with it. Modernity emerges, and unlike the great religious civilizations, which were all based on scripture, and they all had different scriptures, so they had different worldviews and different theologies, etc. Modernity is based on science, which is international and universal. Right? So the idea that it would attempt to globalize its culture, I mean, certainly there's been some imperialism, no question, but a lot of the spread of modernity, at least the sustainable part, has come from countries that have recognized that liberty and equality and prosperity and all the gifts of modernity are something that they want. And so, for example, the Asian tigers, they have a different traditional religious background, but they've been able to embrace modernity to great effect. And the evidence, of course, is that they've experienced what modernity brings, which is what's been called the great enrichment, right? Not just for, the oligarchs, but for the middle class, right? That one of the gifts of modernity is that it empowers individual people. And as I argue, one of the ways that it does that is through its advent of liberal values, right? Like the Bill of Rights, freedom of speech, freedom of press. But among, although the Bill of Rights enumerates many of them, there are other liberal values that are key to the gifts of modernity that are not necessarily listed in the Bill of Rights. And one of them is economic freedom, right? Economic freedom backed by the rule of law is what creates this great enrichment. But of course, it also creates environmental destruction and gross inequality. I mean, then, when we move forward, we create new levels at a higher level of problems. And as Einstein understood, it's these kind of problems that are associated, that are the kind of existential problems that go with a particular, cultural structure. It requires a higher level of thinking for the amelioration of those problems.
You mentioned a few minutes ago about the fact that years ago, people kind of equated religion with magic and mythology. And so now, and you're talking about scientism, moving forward, you're in the realm of quantum physics, which for a lot of people is irrational,
Well, it's certainly weird. Yeah, it certainly violates our kind of intuitive notion of Newtonian mechanics, yeah.
In some ways, that's also magical and mystical,
Sure.
What happens now?
Well, okay, what happens now is we evolve further or we regress, and we probably do both at the same time, all right? So in other words, my work is about helping to define and participate in the emergence of, if you'll pardon the phrase, a kind of a postmodern worldview, a form of culture that appreciates the important caring values and gifts of progressive postmodernism and religious traditionalism, and tries to create a synthesis of all of the positive values of those cultural structures. And this goes with it. It has a perspective. It has a platform of political positions. It's got a robust philosophy and a metaphysics. I mean, we're trying to frame it not as just some pop psychology or some new age philosophy, but something that the society can take seriously because our arguments are compelling. And that's what I've been working on for the past 20 years.